Yo, what's up, everybody? Lawler here. Another Monday means another regional recap. We've got Winter Europe Regional 3, or the Copa de Rocket League, that went down. We're not going to waste any time. We're going to get straight into it. You guys know how we're going to do this. We're going to break it down groups day 1, day 2, back to back to back. I'm going to start it off with one stat, and then we'll talk about who it is at the end. 54 games, never losing a game 5 or game 7, never conceding in Champions Field. Perfection. Pretty much. We'll get there. As we take a look at the groups and everything, if you guys are enjoying the recaps, make sure you guys hit subscribe and turn on notifications. It does greatly help out if you guys want to give likes, comments, all that kind of stuff as well. But 4 groups of 4 in order of their results. Group A, Luminosity, BDS, Cooksters Minions, and Misfits getting eliminated. We'll talk about that. Dignitas winning their group, EG, K-Corp, and Rix.GG. Then got 00 Nation, Guild, Team Queso, and Team Vitality. Endpoint, Williams Resolve, Semper, and Navi. Starting with Group A, Luminosity finally getting to avoid BDS, but not in the sense that people thought. They still had to play them in their group, but they ended up clutching out a win in Game 5. Pretty exciting stuff there. This group in general was kind of weird. Misfits, again, for the second split in a row, has a chance, a really, really good chance to go to the major, and they fall short and end up being the one eliminated out of group. So they finished 13 to 16th. Their group has been completely denied due to the fact that Cooksters Minions ends up getting an upset in the tiebreaker match, because there was 2 teams, 2 tiebreakers, 2 teams at 2-1, 2 teams at 1-2. So Luminosity and BDS play each other again, and Luminosity win again 3-2. BDS looking really, really rough on the first day. Cooksters Minions, though, having their best performance, and then decide to disband after. We'll talk about that in an upcoming Rocket League news video, probably tomorrow or the next day. There's some weird stuff going on in Europe right now. But yeah, Luminosity taking first in the group. They get to dodge Dignitas in the lower bracket. They basically put themselves in the best chance. There was 15 teams coming into this weekend that had a chance to go to the major. There was 3 spots up for grabs. Dignitas grabs one almost immediately, and then you saw Luminosity, Evil Geniuses, K-Corp, 00 Nation, Endpoint, and Guild wasn't. I don't think Guild really had a shot, but there was like 5 or 6 teams that were all in the running that we were paying attention to on the like second day, third day, etc. But everything championship, like who was going to the major and stuff, wrapped up by the end of day 2. So day 3 was more so about seeding, which we'll talk about. But yeah, we get into Group B. Dignitas, they placed top 6. They finally 3-0 their group as expected. Good to see them finally have that result, even though it came back to bite them, it looks like. But they did struggle to do so in the end of the bracket. But in groups, they finally take a 3-0 victory. Evil Geniuses looks pretty consistent as normal. K-Corp has a pretty resounding result at first until they fall short. Their only win coming against Rix. And then Rix goes 0-3 as expected. Group C was, again, crazy. Team Queso, the expected team to do the best, ends up going 1-2. They had to reverse sweep Vitality to stay alive, and then had to reverse sweep another team to not get knocked out in the lower bracket. I'll tell you guys about that in a bit. But Vitality, they, and we'll go into this more in detail in another video, put out some interesting tweets about their team and the future regarding Vitality. They go 0-3 again. Clearly, something's got to change. This was kind of the final nail in the coffin for Vitality as they go 0-3. Team Queso, though, even though they are 1-2, did have 2 really close series where it went to 5. Guild with CR are making some new additions and looking pretty solid. Continuous results from last regional. So Guild showing that CRR is a very viable solution for them. And then 00 Nation 3-0. Some pretty clutch moments from them. So shoutouts to 00 Nation and what they are doing. Breezy Flame and Hibs trying to have some solid performance. We then get into the final group, Group D, where Endpoint does win the top of their group. Williams Resolve shows resilience and gets their wins over Semper and stuff. There was 2 groups, I think, in my predictions that I got perfect. And I think it was Group B and Group D. Rightfully so, because A and C made no sense with the results. But overall, things pretty much went as expected, except for the massive upsets that we saw with Misfits and BDS and Queso and stuff like that. So the things, for the most part, going as expected, but it did create for some interesting scenarios in the lower bracket, which we take a look at the end of day 1, which is lower round 1. You got EG, Cooksters Minions, Guild Semper, BDS K-Corp, and Williams Resolve Queso. Evil Geniuses, as expected, to beat Cooksters Minions. If Cooksters Minions won this match, they would also destroy Evil Geniuses' chances of making it into the playoffs. They could not play upset. This was kind of the more depressing part for Cooksters Minions, because even though they made it out of groups for the first time, this is the first time that Cooksters Minions did not go 0-3. They finally get a win. They finally progress out, and then they still can't make the major. There's no chance for them because of the situations and the way that scenarios played out. So they were just playing spoiler. They ended up losing to EG. Guild and Semper. Guild, a lot of people rooting for it because the more Guild wins, the more chances there are for other teams. Guild does end up upsetting Semper, although Semper is kind of a weird scenario. They started at one point in fall. They went to the major and were a top 4 team with a win over Dignitas to get into the semifinals. They're now sitting at 12th overall in the standings. You're talking a top 4 team in the world to 12th in Europe. Just like that. Pretty crazy stuff, man. Pretty crazy stuff. I expect this upcoming trade window for spring to be wild for Europe. It's going to be interesting to see who goes where and what kind of stuff happens, because there's been some murmurs in the background that may excite you. We then go to BDS and K-Corp, and K-Corp finally puts up their best result they've ever had, and they, in 3 overtimes, 3-0 BDS. It is 1-0 with 15 seconds right off the kickoff, 41 seconds in game 2 where they win 3-2, and then in game 3, 4 seconds again immediately off the kickoff. BDS having a really rough day. They basically show us why it is literally impossible to predict Europe. It's like you have expectations of certain things to happen, and then things fall apart. It's been weird. It's been really, really weird. We then go into the 4th and final game of day 1, and it is Team Queso versus Williams Resolve, a team I'm very keen on because I think they embody what you want as like a foundation as a team. Talking about Williams Resolve, and they have it. They go up 2-0 against Team Queso. They're feeling really good. They've got a really good chance to continue to progress. And then Team Queso, again, just like they reverse swept Vitality to stay alive out of groups, they reverse sweep Williams Resolve to stay alive in the bracket. And it's with 3 overtimes. There was 4 overtimes in the series, and a lot of people were concerned about Queso because they looked pretty poor. And I'm not talking about like the domino effect where you're playing super aggressive and it leads to opportunities and stuff. I'm talking about teams just missing shots and accuracy at times. And Queso and BDS both, your top 2 teams supposedly in Europe, just not looking in form. I talk about what makes a good team great, and I think Queso kind of embodies that right now, where even if they aren't performing at their best, they still finds ways to win. It's what make the best teams and notable teams recognizable. It's you look at like North America, the big 3 for the longest time. There was times where they didn't look that great, but they still found ways to beat teams that were below them. And I'm not saying that Williams Resolve is a bad team by any means. I just said that I really enjoy Williams Resolve. I'm actually more keen on them than I am EG, even though EG is doing quite well consistently. But Team Queso is a better team than Williams Resolve and continuously found ways to win despite having their back up against the wall, which was really exciting because Queso has been pretty dominant so far. They've got a 1st place and a 2nd place. And then they come into this event with the expectation of, yeah, they're probably going to be a top 3 guarantee. And they're fighting with their back up against the wall throughout the entire day. So another game 5, another reverse sweep. That is the difference between what gets crazier towards the tail end of this. So Team Queso does a really good job of staying alive. We now enter the 2nd day. On Saturday, we've got 8 teams remaining trying to figure out who our top 4 are going to be. We've got Luminosity versus Endpoint up top, Dignitas versus 00 Nation, and then the lower bracket continues. Starting with the upper bracket, Luminosity and Endpoint. Luminosity, really tough one from them here. All 1-goal games. Doesn't look like that with the sweep, but it is actually a very close series. Luminosity and EG both fighting basically for a land spot. EG has to get 2nd place at this point. If Endpoint wins this, they've basically shoot in and they're going to be a land team. So Endpoint ends up putting up a really good fight, and they end up closing it out in a sweep. So they're very happy. They're very excited. A couple of the results that happened shortly after do make it so they are guaranteed a spot at the majors. So they do clutch up, and they qualify as like the 4th or 5th seed. We'll get into the specifics at the very end of the video. Dignitas 00 Nation, as predicted, Dignitas just overwhelmed 00 Nation. They just do everything 00 Nation does, but significantly better. 4-0 sweep for them too. So upper semifinals matches go very quickly. So that crushes through. We then go to the lower bracket, EG versus Guild. A lot of people are rooting for Guild because it creates a lot of opportunities for other teams alive. Does not happen. EG shows the more consistent team. Guild puts up a really good fight in game 1 and then gets shut out actually in the last 3 games. So a Spaceman sweep coming in for EG. You then got K-Corp putting up another good fight against Team Queso. Team Queso wins the first two. Second game does go into overtime at 2:14. Queso's starting to look a lot better. And this is where, like, we talk about the ability for teams when it's a new day, a mental reset, certain things can happen. Dignitas is looking absolutely incredible. They dominate their group. They look really, really good. They're guaranteed to be top 6. They now move into top 4, now top 3 in this circumstance. Like, everything's great. And you see the contrast of Dignitas after a different day. You see the same thing here for Team Queso. I have full faith that Team Queso will always be a top 3, top 4 team based upon the way they've been playing in this split. And even though they looked pretty poor and not up to snuff in the group stage in day 1, I do have expectations that after a day of rest, ability to reset and kind of focus back up, they're going to show it. And they do. Despite that, they have a pretty shaky series against K-Corp. K-Corp at one point in the middle of the series, primarily game 3, which is kind of that positional or that pivotal moment where you're like, all right, we're used to how you're going to play. Time to wake up and change. K-Corp started being more aggressive, started winning the midfield challenges a lot more, started basically facilitating the field by aggressive play. They were playing super scared early on, and Queso just did whatever they wanted. Despite that, obviously, K-Corp keeps it pretty close. Astral's starting to work a lot more. The big issue I have with K-Corp, though, is they, for some reason, still have a really hard time with positioning. There's numerous times where 2 players will move up. I talk about Rocket League being in lanes. Left side of the post is one lane. In between the posts is another. To the right of the post is another. And numerous times you'd have someone who's on the left side in lane 1, and then another 2 players that were both on the right side in lane 3. And it's like, why are there 2 players overlapping in the same spot, committed way too close? Like, there will be 3 players in defense from Team Queso, and K-Corp will be like, yeah, let's put 2 players on top of the 18, ready to attack. Both in the same spot with no momentum, completely flat-footed. And then they get counterattacked. And it would happen over and over again. K-Corp's got a ton of potential. They just got to fix their rotations. Like, they are putting themselves in spots that force them to lose. And it happens so many times. When they don't do that, they look incredible. When a solo play happens, both players have a time and a chance to get into a position to help their team out. And then they look great. And that's why I love when you see someone like Astral kind of take the reins and go for something crazy with flip resets and whatnot. I will say their contrast from how they played in Ukraine at the We Play Invitational used to have a lot more relevance because Itachi was going for a lot more stuff. And you also saw Steak doing a lot more. It seems like they've regressed a little bit in that regard. But if they cleaned up their rotations and they didn't over-aggress so much and they just polished things up a little bit, which are pretty simple fixes, I would say, unless it's just like an instinctual thing, they could be good. So they do put up a good fight here, but there is glaring issues that are easily pointed out in K-Corp, and Team Queso eventually does exploit them on that. A lot of long clears and open nets. Very, very upsetting for K-Corp. They do end up losing here. I would not be surprised if some changes happen with some of their players going and coming in from that roster. But K-Corp put up their best fight. They do fall short. Team Queso, again, in a game 5, stay alive. Continuing the lower bracket, you think out Luminosity and EG normally would be the next match. I actually ended up putting out a tweet about this, trying to figure out, kind of going out of order here just to make it easy. Dignitas and 00 Nation played. 00 Nation dropped down to lowers and then had to play again immediately after due to scheduling conflict. If you want to know the specifics and the details, you can check out the tweet. Maybe Wojtek's got it shown up here, but basically due to like scheduling conflicts and who can and can't play, 00 Nation had to play back-to-back, which actually benefited them. Dignitas and Team Queso actually play a very similar playstyle. As long as 00 Nation's mentality wasn't completely destroyed after getting swept, they should be good. And it comes out that way. They start off with 3-0. They're like, yeah, we're warmed up. We're ready to go. We know exactly what you guys are going to bring to the table. We feel good. And they win 3-0. And then Queso's like, yeah, but we're the better team. And then wins four in a row. And that's it. It's over. So Queso finally back in form, looking like the Queso we know and love. 3-1, 2-1, 5-0, 4-1. They close it out. So Team Queso is great, feeling good, trying to lock up the #1 seed. 00 Nation out. They had to win the whole thing to even have a chance. And then we go to our last match. EG and Luminosity, both teams fighting for a LAN spot. EG wins this, they go to LAN. LG, Luminosity Gaming, if they win, they have to go all the way to 2nd place to get a LAN spot. So pretty big inclination on who needs to win. Both of them fighting for their tournament lives and for their LAN spot. And EG in 7 ends up closing out. Very good series, really good match. Back and forth, you saw both teams competing. Really happy. This is the former SK Gaming team, now with Atomic for Luminosity, and they're finally living up to the hype. getting past top 6. That's the expectation. If they can consistently show top 6 like we think they have the potential to be, Luminosity will be another team that is in the running come spring split, which I am going to be ranting about spring split in a video coming up soon. You do not want to miss it. Make sure you guys hit subscribe. I'm going to lose my mind because that split is going to suck. We then continue into our third and final day. We got our top 4 teams: Endpoint, Dig, EG, and Queso. Who's going to win? First game of the day, Endpoint and Dignitas end up being a really unique scenario. Endpoint just straight up outplays Dignitas. Obviously, a lot of credit to Seiko, but I will say there were some glaring issues in this one. Dignitas did not look good. Talk about the contrast between Team Queso being able to bounce back. New day also means that teams can also possibly underperform. That day was Dignitas. Dignitas did not look good by any means. You even saw people like Scrub tweeting out, hey, I could make excuses, but just not feeling it that day. And it happens. It happens. Some people are allowed to have an off day. And if their off day is still top 3 in the region, it could be worse. So Dignitas ends up losing to Endpoints, who, again, there was some issues with like accuracy and stuff that you could see. A couple uncharacteristic whiffs. I will say, though, there was some really exciting goals that happened on the day. Like double taps and flip resets galore on the final day of this regional. There's one in particular between, I think it was Queso and Dignitas, where Joyo hits the nastiest shot. We'll talk about that in a bit. And kind of spoil the lower bracket as we get into Queso and EG. Another really good fight. EG showing that they are able to compete against them at the top. This is similar, to, I think, to Oxygen, though. Oxygen can put up a pretty good fight against top teams in NA. They just have a tough time winning against the top 3. I think they just get outclassed a bit. I will say that EG does make this significantly closer, though. It does come down to 1 goal in the very end. Queso does stay alive. Doesn't look like anybody can stop Queso at this point. They move on to the lower bracket final, where Dignitas, as we've seen continuously through NA and EU, another reason why I hate double elimination, which is part of the rant that will be happening about spring. Teams that drop from the lower bracket or the upper bracket down to the lower bracket, very, very rarely in NA and EU will bounce back to win. Dignitas just looks flat on the day. Joyo hits the nastiest shot. It's like a musty double touch redirect. It was insane. The only fight really that you saw was Dignitas does go to OT in game 3, but like it starts off with a Brazil. Like it was just wild. So Team Queso on a tear. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. And we go into the grand final. And for the first time in the winter split, hence the title, Queso resets the bracket. This has actually not happened in the winter split yet in Europe, where a lower bracket team was able to beat the upper bracket team and cause another match. So Queso does it. It does go to 7, very close. Looked like Queso was going to do it much sooner. They were up 3-1 after game 4, actually. And then Endpoint put up a pretty good fight and bounced back. But it does come down to the point where a lot of inaccuracy. There was times where Metzenaris would just whiff on defense, or certain things would happen. And it's actually not due to their like mechanical issues. It's more of the problem that Rise is. I've been talking about Rise for quite a bit now and how he's super underappreciated and how talented he is as a player. And that's still pairing Joyo and Vatira, who are both absolutely insane. They're working in a lot of fakes, but Rise in particular is a nuisance. The ability to catch the ball and create opportunities, the ability to bump and demo you. The amount of like, hey, Rise is bumping you and then they're going to score. If you want to take a comparison, go watch V1 last split or last regional, where they were just bullying everybody with calm. Very, very similar regard, and a lot of comparisons that could possibly be made. But primarily, Rise just catches teams off guard. He's very tough to game plan for. He is all over the place. He is just a thorn in your side, and it's very exciting to see how his impact as a player is. Go be on offense and do what you do, and we'll take care of it. And he's still able to help out on defense. So Rise gets a lot of credit for me. And after a certain point, you can tell that it is just overwhelming for Endpoint. Both these series are great. 4-3, 4-2. Super close at times. But after a certain point, it definitely looks like Team Queso's series to lose. They reset the bracket, like I said, is the first time here in winter, which is really exciting. And then it's just the mechanical plays. They also work in a bunch of fakes where, I forget what Shogun called it during the cast. A certain type of aerial or a play where they just like send somebody up in the air and it's like, hey, look at me, I'm doing a thing. And then that person doesn't do anything. Joyo in particular is a really big pain in the butt for it, but it makes it complicated. Vatira, you have to count how many flip resets he has. There's going to be something that happens. Very mechanical player, but a lot of credit to Team Queso. They did a surprising thing. The stat I told you guys about at the beginning of this video. They played 54 matches. The most you can play in a regional is 60. If you go the distance in groups, if you play all the lower bracket, you play as many matches as possible, most games you could play is 60, and they played 54. That is insane. It's a crazy lower bracket run. And need I remind, if you go all the way back to the beginning, they had to reverse sweep Vitality to stay alive. They had to reverse sweep Williams Resolve in the lower bracket to make day 2. Pretty impressive stuff. Talking about good teams becoming great. And what better way to do it than to go to the grand final every single regional and to win 2 of them. North American teams should be a little afraid. This is a very dangerous team and a very scary team. I don't think these young players really get turned off by the nerves and the pressure that comes from RLCS World Championship stage or a LAN stage. This team going to the major is probably my favorite European team. I don't have favorite teams. I have teams that I like, and I genuinely I am on the side of series that are exciting. I want good gameplay, but Queso is just fun to watch, and I think that this team is one to pay attention to. I don't think this team is going to be a fluke. They've proven it over winter. I think that new split, obviously with the new format, can change some things, but Queso has shown that they have the resilience and even a lower bracket run, that if you give them an extra life, the best way I can equate it, Team Queso is the new Vitality. Don't count them out, ever. Last thing to talk about is the overall leaderboard. If you guys want to take a look at the full screen graphic that Wojtek puts up, this is your leaderboard for the winter split. You've got Team Queso as the #1 seed. You can see it there, 1,002 points. It would have been 1,053 if they would have won the second regional, but they took second place. So looking pretty dang dominant with a big lead. Dignitas does take second. BDS, not the first seed. It's going to be tough for whatever group gets BDS in there. You then got Endpoint and EG. EG does clutch up this time. So congrats to them. They are able to make it after missing out on Fall. And then as follows, you've got Luminosity, K-Corp, 00 Nation, and more. Again, Misfits falling short, similar to how Heroic did in Fall. They do it again here in winter. Guild starting to have a bit of a resurgence. Semper falling off super hard. I look at teams like Semper, Vitality, etc. Expect roster changes. I kind of think it has to happen. So that is your leaderboard. Those are your 5 teams. They're your top 5 that are going to the major. We'll be doing a lot of major coverage, talking about breakdowns of who's going, what seedings could possibly be, what groups could be, all that kind of stuff, as well as doing recaps on the other regions. I know a lot of people have been asking me to do coverage on SAM and OCE and MENA and stuff like that. I'm going to try to tell you guys teams to look out for, the teams that are going to represent the regions, as well as like pros and cons to the teams and their playstyles. We'll be doing a lot of replay analysis breakdown stuff here as well. So if you guys want to make sure you don't miss out on that, as always, give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. If you've made it this far, I hope you guys enjoy it. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. A lot of crazy stuff going on in NA and EU RLCS, but there's a bunch of other regions to pay attention to as well. This major is going to be sick. There's going to be a lot of really exciting matches, and I think we should enjoy it while we can, because I think the spring split is going to suck. Double elimination isn't fun for me. So with that said, appreciate you all taking the time to watch the video. As always, like, comment, subscribe. You guys know what to do, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.